Thank you for being here. I'm going to just give you a little bit of an update about the Sikkha Project, which some of you, well, I hope many of you have heard at least the word. I'll give you a fair amount of information now, and it'll be followed up by a couple of things, including a newsletter to your order address in the next couple of weeks, and a few things on the Buddhist Center online. So don't worry about catching all of the details, but I just wanted to let you know a little bit more about what we're doing and how that's going. Dhammarati is the convener of this project, which is a combined initiative of the International Council, the Adhisthana vision team, or Adhisthana itself, and the college. So he left a couple of days for the States to do some work there. So he's not able to present it, so in a way I'm presenting it on his behalf today. And it's a project that started sort of in practical ways at the beginning of last year. Though the idea of having a way of looking at our practice, sort of reviewing where things are going well, and how to share some of that, that's been an idea that's been kicking around quite a lot for the last couple of years, but we've really only had about 18 months now to get started on it. And I think it's beginning to develop a bit of momentum, so I'm hoping over the next couple of months you'll see more and more kind of practical things coming out of it. So the reason why this project is happening is that sort of as we're getting bigger as an order and as a movement, like we're trying to develop a kind of mechanism, ways of communicating and having conversations that help us share the best of what we're doing and what's really effective and fruitful with as widely as possible, beyond the informal networks of sharing that I know that are continuing all the time. And as we get more international, as you can hear, I've got an accent. I didn't have one until I came here. As we get more international, we need ways we need ways of finding ways of explaining and presenting the Dharma and communicating it that travel more effectively, that are more easily translated and shared. And we're looking for ways to develop Kalyana Mitrata between people who are communicating the Dharma in a whole range of different contexts. And we want to support people that are leading things. And so when we've asked what that might look like, it's usually some combination of better and deeper understanding and practice, some materials that might be able to support that, and some kind of training or mentoring where people feel that would be helpful, or sort of sharing expertise, networks of sharing expertise. So that's basically what we're trying to do. And it's a rather ambitious project, really, because the idea is that we're trying to review and develop our training in the system of practice in Triratna. So that's why we've been busy. And we've basically got 4 areas that we're working on currently. And the way I see it is that there's a sort of project phrase, if you like. We've got a couple of things that we want to do now. But what we want to do in the long term is just make ways of having these conversations in ongoing ways, always into the future. So we're sort of kicking off a whole lot of things as projects that I hope will just keep going as ways we learn to do things together, ways of collaborating together. So the first is around communicating the Dharma at centers. And this is, in a way, it's at the heart of this question of the system of practice. So what we've often done before, what has been sort of traditional Triratna practice, is to concentrate on integration and positive emotion at centers, and concentrate on spiritual death and rebirth in ordination training and in order life. And receptivity goes all the way through. And for in a 2009 paper, What is the Buddhist Order? What we were doing in that paper was talking about not just having the system of practice as a pathway, but also as a mandala. It raises the question of how is it that we communicate appropriately and effectively the depth of Dharma and the vision of what we are doing as Buddhists right from the start at Triratna centers. And part of the reason for doing that is that it used to be maybe 10 or 15 or 20 years ago, people came into a Buddhist center and had never meditated before and didn't know anything about Buddhism. And that's really not true anymore. People have so many resources. The mindfulness movement's affected people learning meditation. There are all sorts of resources. So in a way, what we want to do is be able to meet who's coming with the most effective and dynamic Dharma that we possibly can. So what I've been doing is wandering around to a number of centres who volunteered to do that. Somewhere on my page it even says who. So I see lots of really nice faces that I met in that process. So I've been to Deal, Maitri Sara did one at Birmingham, Bristol, Shrewsbury, Ipswich, LBC, Sheffield, Nottingham, and we've done this not only in the UK but also in Auckland, New Zealand, in Melbourne, and with the Mexican teaching cooler. So what we've tried to do is go to all sorts of different scales, contexts, and ask two sets of questions. How is it that you understand, facilitate, and communicate, particularly spiritual death and rebirth in your centres? And how is it that you help people to deepen their practice? So how is it that you help to deepen understanding, knowledge, practice, realization? So what is the kind of pathways and how can we help people to deepen their practice? So we've got loads of material from those conversations. Ratnaguna is now part of our team, which is absolutely fantastic. He's spending some time at Adhisthana and he's got lots of training experience. So he and I have been trying to make sense of all of this material we've been generating over the last couple of months. And there are a couple of things that we've found. These are sort of really headline findings. We've got loads of great material. That on the whole, we're exceptionally skilled at Kalyana Mitrata and at approaching spiritual death and rebirth in relational ways. It's really, really fundamental. We know how to help people make themselves more visible, understand their own views, become more into relationship, approach reality, if you like, through the Sangha. We're extremely skilled at that. We found the importance of the ability to communicate depth and dynamism in our practice. So it seems to me, this is more of an observation, that situations that feel really dynamic are because they're able somehow, in a wide variety of ways, to articulate what it is that we're doing in our Dharma practice, whether it's infinite consciousness, infinite love, the Sangha. There are all sorts of ways of doing it, but where there's a sense that actually there's a real purpose to our practice together, there's a lot of dynamism in that situation. So we want to help people to do that more. And people in centres and groups I've spoken to have basically asked for some support with teaching materials, particularly for newcomers that are quite vital and dynamic. So we've had a gathering of people called the Dhammakata. It was the first of a number of them, and that group is expanding to kind of help us make sense of what we've been finding. And we're starting on producing some materials or sharing some materials that we know are already effective for communicating at depth right from the start. So one set of materials comes from the Sheffield courses, the Sheffield newcomers courses, which basically introduce the Lakshanas on day one of the first newcomers course in a really, really helpful way, and then continues into an Eightfold Path course, and also the Journey and the Guide. But we want to create resources that will help people to take that on board. So we're going to do video resources, handbooks, and handbooks that are in a way easy to translate, both literally into other languages, but also into different kind of contexts that you might be teaching in. So that should all be available if all goes well. We're doing crash courses in how to video complex materials. That should be available by the beginning of next year. And what we also are going to offer at Adhisthana next year is a series of retreats that will offer support to people who are communicating the Dharma. So we're going to have a new and emerging teachers retreat led by Ratnaguna and a team, with mentoring afterwards, how to do talks, how to stand up, how to bring a relationship between your own practice and how you communicate the Dharma. So newcomers one, so new order members and people who haven't maybe done that much teaching. A second course which is more, we're hoping to get a number of people from centres coming together on retreat to talk about kind of the vision of communicating the Dharma at your centre. How does it all work? Not just how does it work in terms of the content, but how do the relationships work? How do teams work? And that's going to be run by the Sheffield, where Vidanya and Ratnaguna and a team from Sheffield. And then we're going to basically take what the LBC have been doing in their LBC teacher training retreat and offer it again at the LBC and at the Manchester Buddhist Centre. And that's for most people who've got a bit more experience in teaching, but who want to have constructive and interesting feedback and be in a live teaching situation and get feedback. So we're basically wanting to offer a bit more support for people who are sort of trying to find their own voice in relation to communicating the Dharma. Yeah. So that's the bit that we can say, oh, look, here it is. It's coming soon to a website and a centre near you. And we have another couple of other initiatives that are a bit earlier in their phases. The one is that we are wanting to create a context where particularly meditation teachers, that's a funny word, isn't it? People who are leading meditation retreats and who are leading meditation at centres can get together a bit more. It's clear from our conversations at some centres that though we are very effective at introducing people to our basic forms of meditation, going deeper, people sometimes felt a little bit less confident about how to lead that, how to engage with big or unusual meditation experiences, how to conduct meditation reviews, how to support meditation classes as they go deeper. So we're going to convene a group which is currently called the Meditation Kula, and there's a little convening team which is Dhammarati, Vasantara, Tejananda, Satyaraja, Vijayamala. 5? Is that 5? Yes, and about 20 others who are very engaged either in leading retreats or teaching meditation at centres. And we're hoping to support meditation teaching at centres, create this forum, and think particularly about, there are more and more experiments for how to introduce Vipassana type meditation approaches at centre level. So we want to get some expertise together and experiment and work out what might be the best way to do that and support it and train in it. Yep, so they're meeting for the first time in November, but I think that might be quite an ongoing thing. There's lots to talk about, I think, in that area. And the third is that we are hoping by the end of the year to conduct an order practice survey. So it's been really interesting just hearing in the talks and in the discussions this question about how is it that we practice as order members? How do we sustain practice? What are the kind of phases that order practice goes through? What happens when people loop in and out of their order lives in that way? What happens when you kind of lose track of where you're going? What can you do next? So what we're really going to do is find out a little more about all of our experience about practice. And one of the reasons I think to do that is many of the conversations I've had with people, there's often a sense that sort of the real order member is somewhere else. It's really striking, actually. Like I think I'm doing okay, but actually if I was the proper order member, I would be doing this, not what I'm doing here. So what we want to do is actually just, in a way, find out what people really are doing, whether it's in terms of sadhana or meditation or reflection or ethical practice or retreats, yeah, and ask basically what kind of support might you need in your practice? What do you think would be helpful, or what would you like to share with other people from what you've learned? So we're hoping to do an order practice survey, which will hopefully happen by the end of the year, and it's a combination of the Sikkha Project and the Order Office. But we're working on a draft of that at the moment, and Karina Geeters and I are working on that together. So that's 3 of the 4 things that we're doing. The rest of the morning is going to be, in fact, the rest of the day is going to be dedicated to the 4th one, which is the Practice Lotus. And I really just wanted to reiterate Parami's thanks for Karuna Gita and Amara Gita and also Joy, who you'll talk about, I think, who have been developing this really, really interesting and helpful way for us to have depth and breadth conversations about our practice. And I want to thank the Future Dharma Fund for supporting the work that we're doing. the moment most of this project we're doing on a shoestring budget, but the shoestring budget is being all provided by Future Dharma Fund, and we're very, very grateful for it. I really hope that we've probably talked to a couple of hundred order members so far in the project, and I'm really hoping that over the next while that can include more and more of you. And if you have anything that you'd like to contribute to the project, then please do be in touch. But for now, we're going to stop talking about it and do a little bit of the creative kinds of conversations that we're hoping to enable in what we're doing. So thank you very much. Bye.